Good morning, friends. In the series of bilateral relations, today we will be discussing one of the important neighbors of India, that is Bangladesh. As you know, Bangladesh was part of Pakistan till 1971. It was called as East Pakistan. If you want to know more about it, about India-Pakistan relations, do watch my video on India-Pakistan, and you can get there the reason why Bangladesh became an independent state, right? See, to cut the long story short, there was total unwillingness on the part of Pakistani leadership to share power with Bengalis. Added to this, contradiction of, earlier everybody thought that since Pakistan was formed on the basis of religion, Islam will be a sufficient glue to keep the different ethnicities united. That was the assumption. But this assumption got the first blow in 1971, that is with Bangladesh, right? Please understand, I'm not ruling out the Indian role in that, but again, that's not the decisive. That at best could have been the contributory factor. Question arises, what was the important cause for breaking of Pakistan into Pakistan and Bangladesh? See, the thing is that religion could not resolve the contradictions of geography, culture, language, and economy. Now, what are these fault lines? Firstly, ethnically, these people are different. Culturally, these people are different. What we call East Pakistani people, what today we call as Bangladeshis, they were quite different from people of West Pakistan. Their language was different. There it is basically Punjabi, Urdu, Sindhi, Pashto, and Pakhtuni, different kinds of languages, but predominantly Punjabi, right? Here the predominant language was Bengali. Secondly, as I said, culturally both the people are of very different stock. And thirdly, contradiction of geography. See, East Pakistan and West Pakistan were separated by almost in between India, almost a distance of more than 2000 kilometers. And lastly, the East Pakistan, which was a resource-rich, mineral-rich region, was treated like a colony by the rulers of West Pakistan. And you can know the details if you hear my lecture on India-Pakistan relations, where I have even dealt with Bangladesh as factor in India-Pakistani's relationship discord, right? Discord in the relationship. So the thing is, you can hear me there, but right now, let me make it very clear. Besides these four fault lines, four contradictions, one of the still Pakistan could have remained as one country, but for the fact that unwillingness of ruling elites of West Pakistan to share power with Bengalis. This was the reason, and you know how it culminated in 1971 war, which resulted in comprehensive defeat of Pakistan and emergence of Bangladesh as an independent state, right? And right from the day one, the kind of importance which we attached to Bangladesh, obviously it was a huge victory for India, both not only in political sense, but even in terms of its strategic and defense requirements. Because earlier we had threat from both the sectors, eastern as well as western. After the bifurcation of Pakistan, our threat got concentrated only on the western sector. So it was a huge achievement of Indira Gandhi without any doubt, right? But as I said, role of India at best was contributory. Basic factors were the four fault lines which I have said, the four contradictions, along with the fact that unwillingness of Pakistani rulership to share power with Bengalis. Despite Mujibur Rahman getting such a huge majority, even in the National Assembly, he was not invited to be the Prime Minister of Pakistan. And India always had that kind of a goodwill in Bangladesh of getting independence to Bangladesh. And as soon as Bangladesh was formed, Mrs. Gandhi visited that country, and Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, India became the first country which Sheikh Mujibur Rahman decided to visit, because the kind of role which India played in their independence. As a result, in 1971 itself, or 72, I mean, I could be wrong by a year here and there, we signed an Indo-Bangladesh Friendship Treaty, under which India started giving heavy doses of aid to Bangladesh and to rebuild their economy. And please remember, Bangladesh is a resource-rich and mineral-rich region in the world. And one of the characteristics of Bangladesh is that it is one of the most densely populated regions of the world. Now, coming to the topography of it, Bangladesh, please remember, we share the longest border with Bangladesh, right? Almost 4,096 kilometers, which runs, which shares border with almost 5 states of India: West Bengal, Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura and Mizoram, right? And why Bangladesh is so important? Why we should, why Indian government sometimes goes out of the way in order to accommodate Bangladesh? For the simple reason that Bangladesh is significant for India, for it is critical for India's security, number one. Two, development of its northeast, because assuming we were to travel from Bengal, say Calcutta, to say Meghalaya or Guwahati and other things, it takes a very, very long route, right? You have to go, if I can draw this, right? If I can draw this, if Bengal is somewhere here, our northeast is here. In between you have Bangladesh. Suppose if you want to go from, say, Calcutta to, say, Meghalaya or Nagaland and other things, you have to take such a long route. Whereas if we get access through Bangladesh, and that too after Siliguri, what we normally call as chicken snake, this, the terrain becomes more and more hostile because it is completely a hilly region. One of the reasons for isolation of northeast from rest of India was the difficult terrain, right? So, and it takes lot of time, 4 or 5 days also sometimes by road. But if we get access from Bangladesh, straight away we can go from here, like this, right? So this is the reason why Bangladesh is very, highly critical, one, for India's security. Just imagine China getting based somewhere there. How much security cost it is going to impose on India, right? Secondly, for connectivity to our northeast. And thirdly, for success of its Look East policy, right? Look East policy, I have done a separate explanation on that. You can listen to that lecture as to how Look East policy today is the fulcrum of Indian foreign policy, right? And for the success of our Look East policy, Bangladesh is a very critical country for India. See, had it been only problem with regard to Islam in case of Pakistan, then Bangladesh is also an Islamic country. Why is that it is such a friendly country, unlike Pakistan, which is quite hostile? You may say, with regard to sharing of border, we share the longest border with Pakistan. And today, with Bangladesh, and today we do not have border problems with Bangladesh even for an inch of land. Earlier there was, I'm not saying we never had, we had that problem. But the thing is that we have solved it amicably, right? And Bangladesh, I mean, despite some problems here and there, by and large, is a very, very friendly country. Just imagine 54 rivers flow from India into Bangladesh, and we do not have water sharing problem with regard to 53 rivers. We have problem only with regard to one river, that is Teesta. That is more because of the competitive politics of the state government rather than the stand of the national government, right? So literally, we don't have any border dispute with Bangladesh. We do not have any almost negligible dispute with Bangladesh with regard to sharing of river waters, despite the fact that 54 rivers from India flow into Bangladesh, right? So, what are the other aspects? As I said, it is quite critical for India's security. Then we signed, we have literally settled our border on the principle of exchange of enclaves on the basis of what we call in law as hostile possession, right? Adverse possession, right? Now, what exactly is this law? This law says that if you possess a particular property which may not be yours, right? And if you continue to possess this for 13 years and there are assuming no challenge to your possession, then legally it becomes yours, right? So similarly, almost for 4,000 somewhere around 20 square kilometers of border, we settled it long back. Problem came with regard to only some 64 square kilometers of, kilometers of border with Bangladesh. Even in 2015 during Modi's visit, we have solved that also. How? As I said, there were certain areas which was claimed by India, but it was in possession of Bangladesh. And there was certain area which was claimed by Bangladesh, but it was in possession of India. So in 2015, we said, okay, whatever you possess is yours and whatever we possess is ours. Although India suffered some loss of territory because of this agreement, but nevertheless, it was a good agreement keeping in view overall interest of the country, right? So today, as I said, we do not have any border dispute with Bangladesh, despite the fact that sharing one of the longest borders with that country, right? Then both the countries have signed almost 22 kinds of agreements. We have almost 40 to 50 joint working groups on various issues, including sharing of river water, sharing of information. We have extradition treaty with Bangladesh, right? And cooperation in areas like power generation, textiles, conservation of Sundarbans Delta, known for its famous Royal Bengal tigers, renewable energy, education, sharing of river waters. As I said, almost 54 rivers from India flow into Bangladesh, yet except Teesta, we do not have any border dispute, any problem of sharing of river water with Bangladesh. And 2010, some significant agreements were signed with Bangladesh: extradition treaty, bilateral security cooperation, mutual legal assistance on criminal matters, agreement on transfers of sentenced person, combating international terrorism, organized crime. In all this, then there is system of hearts, markets, that is, artisans and other specialists on handicrafts are allowed to sell their products in these hearts. Hearts means markets. That is something like village fair, whereby in one particular week, Bangladeshis are allowed to open their hearts in the Indian territory, and Indians are allowed to open their hearts for one particular week. Especially people from Northeast are allowed to open their heart in Bangladesh's territory, right? Then Operation Sampriti, that is some sort of a joint military exercises which India and Bangladesh defense forces of both the countries, primarily army, conducts quite often. Then inland water transit and trade agreement with Bangladesh. Then BIPA, bilateral investment promotion and protection agreement, right? This is going to open floodgates for investment on both the sides, right? Construction of Akwara Agartala railway line. Akwara is in Pakistan, Bangladesh. Agartala, as you know, is capital of state of Tripura. We have a railway line. Both the countries have granted each other the status of most favored nation. Then both the countries allow trucks movements from Nepal and Bhutan, since both the countries are landlocked. Both countries believe in role of SAARC. And please remember, Bangladesh is one of the few countries which is supportive of India's claim for permanent membership of Security Council despite their growing closeness with China. Right? It is one of the few countries which is supportive of India's claim for permanent membership of Security Council. Right? And there is, in this border area, there is a lot of human trafficking for prostitution and child labor and all that. So, there is, it's a hotbed of organized crime, and we have every conceivable kind of agreement with Bangladesh in order to combat organized crime on the border areas. Then India is the largest export destination for Bangladesh, and Bangladesh is the largest trading partner of India in this region. Then cooperation in areas like cultural, art, literature, education, sports, health. Then business delegations also go from one country into another. Right? All these are, good points between India and Bangladesh. Then with regard to sharing of river water, we have joint working groups where both the countries inform each other about dredging, about floods, about shortage of water, about all the aspects related to sharing of water, right? But see, in international relations, you must understand it is not a sum-zero game, right? We may be friendly with a particular country. That does not mean that there will not be points of discord. That does not mean there will not be any disagreement with that country, right? Even with a friendly country, right? On the other hand, even with an inimical country, we can have certain areas of cooperation. As I said, China is openly an enemy country of India. Yet there are areas where we cooperate, trade on the issues of BRICS, on the issues of sometimes on the issues of terrorism, right? So, because in future they will have to cooperate with us, keeping in view the kind of terrorist activities that are going on in Xinjiang province. So, with America, today it is a very friendly country to us. Does it mean there are no points of disagreement? There are many and significant points of disagreements, like say issue of Iran, issue of outsourcing, issue of patents, issue of S-400 deal with Russia. There are many areas of disagreement, but that does not deviate it from the fact that America is a friendly country to India. Similarly, Bangladesh is also a friendly country to India, but despite that, there are many points of discord. Let us see what exactly. One of the significant problem between India and Bangladesh is illegal migration of Bangladeshis into India, right? This has been going on since very, very long time, and more than Bangladeshi government, I blame government of India for that. It is they who permitted for their, wretched vote bank politics, successive parties, right, allowed and even encouraged illegal migration from Bangladesh, right? In fact, I consider the problem of Bodoland problem in many parts of the Northeast and as a direct fallout of illegal migration from Bangladesh, which actually was encouraged by the secular political class of this country. It is they who are responsible. more than Bangladeshis, right? And so this is one major problem, and estimates as per NRC, you know, that National Population Register, and as per that, there is something like 40 to 50 lakhs illegal Bangladeshi immigrants in the country, right? And as per one report which was cited extensively by writers like Arun Shourie, there are anywhere between 1.5 to 2 crores Bangladeshis who are illegally staying in India, right? Now, I'll right now stop, but I'll be covering this point towards the end in far greater detail. So this is one of the important points of discord. Although government of India either never brought this because it is the political class within India which actively encouraged it, and secondly, even if we bring it to the notice of Bangladesh, we do it quite diplomatically because of strategic importance of Bangladesh to India. As I said, it is significant country for India's security, for our connectivity to Northeast, and thirdly, for the success of its Look East policy. Then Bangladesh providing shelter to insurgents from Northeast, and for a very long time it was base of ISI activities for ISI, that is intelligence services agencies of Pakistan, to foment trouble for India, especially the way they use Nepal, they use Bangladesh also to smuggle illegal arms and sometimes counterfeit currency. Then Bangladesh many a times talks about a new demographic order. Now what exactly is this new? As we have new international economic order, they say we must have new international demographic order. What does this mean? I mean, I don't want to go into the detailed explanation of that. That's not required. In short, it means countries that are overpopulated have every right to send their excess population to countries that are less populated, right, where there is less density of population. And Bangladesh openly believes in that, and many times it openly talks about that, right? So as a result, this is causing a discord in India, and most significant, growing influence of Pakistan and China. China is again using its checkbook diplomacy here in order to win away Bangladesh from India, right? If Narendra Modi goes and promises an aid of line of credit to the tune of $2 billion, $2 billion, within a week, the Chinese leader Li Jinping goes and promises an aid of almost $20 billion, right? So all this is causing for concern. All these things are of concern to India, because growing Chinese influence in future could be detrimental to the security interest of India, right? So this is also one of the important points of discord. Then there are parties like Jamaat-e-Islami, Bangladesh Nationalist Party, which are basically anti-India and pro-China and pro-Pakistan. So that is also many a cause. Then treatment of minorities like Hindus and Chakma refugees, that is Buddhist minorities. There is without any doubt, though Bangladesh is a very friendly country to India, there is absolutely no doubt that minorities are shabbily treated in Bangladesh, especially minorities like Hindus and Buddhists, right? In fact, it will not be an exaggeration if I say that they constantly live under the shadow of rape, murder and loot. Many a times their properties are legally taken over by a very draconian law called Enemy Property Act, right? So, I mean, there is atrocities on Hindus in Bangladesh is a very well documented fact. You can get umpteen number of documents on internet about the way minorities are being treated in Bangladesh. the best, I mean, the most visible symbol of this kind of attitude is the way the famous writer Taslima Nasreen was haunted in Pakistan, and she had to leave that country. So these are many points of discord with treatment of one. Then China is building road linking from Bangladesh to China via Burma. As I said, growing Chinese influence is also one of the major cause for discord in India-Bangladesh relations. Right. Now, one more fact which you should remember between India and Bangladesh relations, many a times it depends on who is ruling Bangladesh. Suppose if it is Khalida Zia of Bangladeshi Nationalist Party, and she will be supported by Pakistan, Jamaat Islami, China and others. So she is normally anti-India. Her policies are, whenever she comes to power, we can find all terrorist groups, ISIS, anti-India activities getting based there. But fortunately for India, since last decade, Bangladesh is being ruled by Awami League Party, that is of Sheikh Hasina Wajid. As you know, she is daughter of the founder of Bangladesh, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, who was completely pro-India, right? And you know, his entire family was assassinated. Military took over power in Bangladesh, right? Sheikh Hasina Wajid survived because she was pursuing her education abroad. So if she is in power, she is pro-India. She implements extradition treaty in its totality. She catches hold of all these insurgent groups from Northeast, hands them over to India, right? So as long as she is there, our interests are well protected in Bangladesh. But if there is a change in regime, then it could be detrimental to security concerns of India, right? That is the reason, one primary reason why we must ensure, we must help Bangladesh in order to see that Sheikh Hasina Wajid has something to speak for during elections in her favor, right? So this is about India, Bangladesh. All these are important points of discord. Then there was one minor discord called Moor Island. Issue of Moor Island. One island was somewhere between India and Bangladesh, was discovered somewhere in 1981, right? And both the countries, the Bangladeshi Rifles and Border Security Force, even exchanged fire for that island. And since both the countries were claiming for it, they were fighting for it. I mean, not much. Some here, some minor exchange of fires here and there. But as you know, 2004 or 2005, tsunami came, that island got submerged, and the entire dispute also got submerged. So today, barring these few factors like illegal migration, increasing influence of Chinese influence, treatment of minorities, barring these 4-5 issues, I don't think that there is much of a problem between India and Bangladesh. Bangladesh continues to be a friendly country of India with some minor hiccups here and there. As I said, these are the points of. Now I would like to concentrate more on illegal migration, because that is the topic which is quite relevant to us. See, as I said, figures vary anywhere between 50 lakhs to 2 crores. It's a fact that, see, I can understand. You may ask me, sir, many Indians are also going and working in America. Please remember, there is absolutely no problem if anybody enters India legally. If you may say they are poor people, they are coming in search of livelihood, arrangements can be made for that. Something like green card, something like work permit, right? See, just I'll give you an analogy. Suppose there is a heavy rain. If somebody comes and wants some shelter in your house for some time, some shade, right? You can always offer him. You can offer him cup of tea or even breakfast and everything. But once rain stops, he goes away. But suppose if somebody tries to enter your house through back door, through windows, jumps inside forcibly, are you going to accept that? Similarly, here we must clearly distinguish between a refugee and an infiltrator? Because question quite often asked is, then what about Hindus? Many Hindus who have crossed over to India. Please understand, a Hindu is, the persecution of Hindus is a well documented fact in Bangladesh, and they are persecuted not because they are criminals, they are persecuted because they are Hindus. Because of their religious beliefs, they are being persecuted. Not only Hindus, but even Buddhists. That's why Chakma refugees have sought shelter in India, especially in places like Northeast, which is creating another kind of problem. I mean, right now, that is not the purpose of the present lecture, right? So the thing is that now I do not buy this argument that an innocent person, innocent villager is coming in search of livelihood. Had it been so simple, there wouldn't have been any problem. We could have worked out an arrangement like green card or work permit. See, just analyze these arguments, right? In India, suppose if I ask a person from Hyderabad to go and simply to go and work in, say, Meghalaya, right? I mean, if you lift one educated person in India and you literally place him in another part of the country, except crying or taking the next train, coming back, or seeking help and coming back to their place, right? They do not know anything about the other place, right? Even this I am talking about an educated person. Imagine totally an uneducated, illiterate person is crossing international border, right? Can you go to America and go to catch a right train without asking people, without taking the help of locals, or with so many difficulties? Here, just imagine a person is crossing the international border illegally, right? He crosses the border illegally, goes to the right railway station, catches the right train, performs a long journey of 2000 kilometers, gets down at the right railway station, right? Gets a job there, right? Manages to get Aadhaar, manages to get ration card, manages to get voter ID card also, and sometimes manages to get passport, right? So just imagine an uneducated, unlettered person crossing international border, right? Going to right railway station in a totally foreign land, catching the right train, performing a journey of 2500 kilometers, getting down at the right railway station, manages to get job, manages to get ration card, manages to get Aadhaar, manages to get passport also. Is it possible without a very criminal nexus behind all this? Right? Is it possible without the active connivance of some corrupt officials and a very, very powerful criminal nexus is behind all this? That's the reason why I am saying this. We must distinguish between a refugee and an infiltrator. For refugee, we must have all the sympathies. But for infiltrator, he must be dealt to the fullest extent of law in as stringent manner as possible. He must be caught, identified, and deported back. Right? So, this misplaced sympathy has caused so much of damage for our country. It's time that we must put an end to this and make all the efforts to break this criminal nexus which is encouraging this kind of illegal immigration, right? And this is also one of the reasons our NRC or NPR is causing some discomfort in Bangladesh, right? Because there is, from official level, we do not have any clarity as to what would be the stand of Government of India or Government of Bangladesh, assuming we identify 40 lakhs people as illegal migrants, right? Even if we say that we will send them back, question arises whether Bangladesh government is prepared to take them back or not. And we cannot antagonize Bangladesh beyond a point. Why? Because as I said, Bangladesh look east policy is one of the fulcrums of Indian foreign policy today, right? many other dimensions for the success of Indian foreign policy will depend on this factor. So, and for the success of our Look East policy, Bangladesh is a critical country, besides being critical for the security of the country and finding access to connectivity to Northeast, right? Ultimately, we have to develop Northeast also in for the success of our Southeast Asia policy, right? So for all this, Bangladesh is a critical country. So about this NRC and other things, I really do not know what is going to be the future in future and what exactly is the official position of Government of India. Assuming you believe that it is to deport the illegal migrants back, another major question is Bangladesh going to take them back or not, right? But anyway, at least now we are in a position to prevent further illegal immigration, right? So these are the important points of discord, but that does not mean Bangladesh is not a friendly country. Despite this discords, Bangladesh is extremely friendly country to India. The very fact that such a longest border, we have solved it amicably without firing a bullet. Just contrast this with the border dispute with Pakistan and China, right? And secondly, 54 rivers flow from India to Bangladesh, except with regard to Teesta, we do not have any problem with regard to sharing of river water. And as I said, last year, I mean in 2015 during Modi's visit, Bangladesh has provided many kinds of facilities to Indian businessmen, including a separate cess has been created for Indians. Then Indians are allowed to use Mangala port in Bangladesh, right? Earlier we had to do our trade through Singapore and other things. Today we have cut the distance shorts by utilizing Mangala port. And India is providing, promised a line of credit to the extent of $2 billion to Bangladesh to develop their infrastructure. India is many a times building their infrastructure. India has, is providing lot of power to Bangladesh on regular basis, and Bangladesh in turn has provided the facilities at Mangala port for Indian businessmen, and it is creating many CEZ, that is special economic zones, exclusively for Indian business. Now, to cut the long story short, why Bangladesh is so significant, you must mention these 3 points. For security of India, second, connectivity to Northeast, and third, success of its Look East policy. I mean, if you can write your answer accommodating these 3 important points, I think you can get good marks. And important relationship, as I said, besides all this, it is a friendly country, it is supportive of India's claim for permanent membership of Security Council. All these points you can read, which I have mentioned, right? You need not mention every point, just call out 4 or 5 important points, plus most significant, the 3 points which I said: connectivity to Northeast, security, and success of its Look East policy. Substantiate it with whatever is the latest. As I said, providing CEZ facilities exclusive for Indian businessmen, and providing facilities at Mangala port for India trade. So this is something between India and Bangladesh, right? Thanks.